Down the left-hand side, there's four areas that you can use. In this webinar, we're going to focus on the protection side of things because that's the area that we have bespoke specifically for Oracle. But there are workplace tools, so if any of you are involved in auto-enrollment or group pensions, we do have tools in there to help you compare those products. We do have a savings and investments tab, but we're working on that currently, so there's nothing there at the moment. And there is also a software comparison, which you may or may not find useful. If you click on the protection tab, that will then bring down a drop-down menu with the three products that we provide the comparison services to Oracle in. So we've got a critical illness comparison tool, which will do life and kick, income protection comparison, and a life-only comparison. In this demonstration, I'm just going to run through the critical illness comparison. If we get time at the end, I'll run you through the other two, but it's exactly the same formats as you run through the tool. So if we're looking to do a critical illness comparison, we can click on the critical illness link. That will then bring a further drop-down menu where you can click on the comparison link to go into that tool. The first screen you'll come to will ask you a few details about your clients. So we've got a drop-down list. If you're new to the tool, the only thing that will appear in the drop-down list is the new clients option, where you can click on that and add in some very basic details about your clients. The only thing we mandate there is the name and date of birth, because we use that to personalize the reports. If you have done a report before or added a client, they will be stored in your drop-down list, so you won't need to re-enter that client if you are rerunning a report for them. You can just select them and that will pre-populate within the system. Once you've input the client details, you can click continue, and the system will take you on to the next page, which will ask you to match your client to a cell within this table. Now, how the tool works is behind each of these cells, we have built a template of the product features that Mike, Oracle, and ourselves have agreed are important to that particular demographic of client. So in this instance, we're doing a critical illness comparison. The options we have is it a single life male, single life for a female, or a joint case, and do they have dependents or not? Now, based on your client, you should be able to match the client to a cell in this box. Within that, so if you select the male column, then obviously the critical illnesses we look at are the more male orientated critical illnesses, with no emphasis put on the female related conditions such as ovarian cancer and breast cancer and so on. So that would look more at the male orientated cancer such as testicular cancer and others. The opposite is true to if you pick in one of the cells on the female column, where we will take into account the female related conditions but not the male related, and the joint column we'll look at both because we're assuming that it's a mixed sex couple. Dependents, yes or no. If your client does have dependents, then we'll look at the strength of the children's critical illness. If they don't have dependents, then children's critical illness won't be taken into account. So you can see there the way of what you select and where your client fits in that will differ the output report based on what we're looking at. So in this instance, if you were advising me, let's say you would select the male column. I do have children, so you say yes to dependents. We can click continue on that cell there. At the next screen, what the system will do is ask you who you want to compare. So for the majority of you, I imagine you just want to select everyone based on being whole of market. So we would select all providers. Alternatively, if you did just want to compare against one or two contracts, you can select individual contracts or providers. But in this case, I'm going to select everyone. We can then continue on, And whilst that's thinking about it, the system will be pulling together all the details that we had within that particular template for that client, and combining that with F&TRC's underlying benchmarks. So on the left-hand side in this pie chart here, you can see the areas that have been selected and the weighting that have been given to each. The right-hand side, you can see how we at F&TRC have benchmarked each provider in each of those areas. And then that will give you an overall result as to who might be a best match for your client. Now, as Mike said earlier, this could be really useful to you if you can compare this with the output you get from AsureWeb, because Friends Life are probably unlikely to be one of the cheaper providers. However, they are coming top on this particular instance based on the quality of the product. And it may be a case of you saying to yourself or to your client, well, Mr. Client, Friends Life is £2 or £3 more expensive than the cheapest available contract. However, based on my extensive research into the quality of the product, it has more of the features and is more comprehensive in the areas that are relevant to you, and therefore is it worth spending that £2, £3, £4, £5 per month more to get a more comprehensive product. So that's just something for you to consider. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go with the top here. You might say be working to a budget with the client, and there's 3 or 4 providers that fall within that budget. You might want to select the provider that offers the best quality out of those top 4 or 5 from AsureWeb. So the system shows you what the overall results are, but it will also go through and show you what the results are for each of those areas and features that have been selected. So for critical illness ABI, you can see that we've focused on cancer, heart attack, stroke, benign brain tumor, MS, basically the top 5 most claimed on conditions. We also look at things like the plan options, so whether there's a critical illness buyback, the terminal illness definition, if it offers second medical opinion services, rehab services, the non-ABI critical illness conditions. In this instance, because we've said that the client does have dependents, we're taking into account children's critical illness cover, TPD, and GIOs. So that will give you an idea of how each provider is scoring in each of those areas, because the provider that comes top overall is not necessarily going to come top in every single area. It just means that overall they're offering the most comprehensive based on the areas that were selected within the template that you had for your client. So once you've gone through and assessed that, there's a couple of output reports you could produce. There is a 2-page summary report, which I'll just quickly generate here, which should generate pretty quickly. There we go. So this is literally just a 2-page report showing the areas that you've selected and how you've weighted them, and what the overall results were. Let me get through so you can see this. So the first page is just the areas that were selected and how they were weighted, and then the right-hand page will show you what the overall results were. How people use this differs. Some advisors like to generate this and give a copy of this to their clients, just because it's a very quick and easy way to understand how you've done your research. Some advisors might addend it to their suitability reports. Other advisors just wouldn't generate this at all and would instead go for the full reports, which I'll show you now. So the detailed reports, if you opt to generate that, the system will ask you if you want to include data tables showing all of the questions we have asked in each of the areas that have been benchmarked, along with the responses from up to the top 6 providers. If you do that, certainly for the critical illness reports, it will take a little time to generate because there's a lot of information that goes into that. and to give you an idea of that, I've generated one previously. This is the full reports. So what it will do is it will show you the overall results, as you saw on screen and on the two-page report. It will also show you the results in each of the areas analysed. And this also gives you the ability to type in notes. It's generated in a Word document, so you can edit this or copy and paste tables into a suitability report if you want. Alternatively, you can add in notes which might reflect details of any conversations you've had with your clients, or alternatively why you might have be keen on picking someone that's particularly strong in a certain area. So it will show you the results for each of those areas that have been benchmarked. And then, as we said, if you opt to include the data tables, it will include all of the questions that we've asked. Now, for critical illness, that does include everyone's actual definition for each of the conditions. And that's what makes the report quite long, because some insurers have very, very long wordings. But to give you an idea of the kind of analysis that we go into, I'm going to go past the critical illness stuff because all of that is pretty much wording, and show you, for example, the children's critical illness cover. There you can see the types of questions we're asking. We're asking what conditions are covered under the children's critical illness, whether it's ABI or ABI plus. And we also try to really drill into the detail. So, for example, in the GIOs, it's not just a do you offer a GIO for a certain event. It's, okay, what does the client need to do to trigger that? How much can they increase it by? What age ranges can they do it? How long do they need to give you in order to be able to apply for that GIO? So it really drills into the detail to get to the crux of who really does offer the better definitions. So that's the main output report. As Mike said, you may want to share that with a client. I personally wouldn't recommend giving the client a copy, because what we found sometimes is clients get a bit too caught up in the actual detail. So unless you've got a client that really is going to read through all of that detail and look to understand it, it might be something that you show them to say, here, look, this is my research. This is why I'm recommending the product I'm recommending. It's not the cheapest, I understand that, but based on my research, it is more comprehensive than the others. Alternatively, and I know what Mike would like you to do, is to generate this report and attach it to your file, so that when you submit the business, compliance can then look through and understand why you might not have gone for the cheapest product from AsureWeb, because essentially that's what this report does. It gives you evidence and an audit trail to show why you're not going for the cheapest. So the critical illness tool is literally as simple as that. What I'll do is I'll quickly run you through the income protection and life protection tools as well, because it's exactly the same flow, but there's a few differences. So again, for the income protection, it's a case of going through, inputting the details of your clients. When you get to the next step, obviously the table that we look at here is different to what we saw under critical illness. Within this, what we have done is separated the pure guaranteed rate income protection products, if you like, the ones where the premium will remain the same regardless. We've got a column for guaranteed products that are based on an age-banded guaranteed rate, i.e. the premium will go up each year in line with the client's age. Renewable contracts and reviewable contracts. On the other axis there, we're looking at whether your client has earned income, i.e. is employed or self-employed, and alternatively whether they are a house person, i.e. have no income but you want to cover them because of the expenses that might be incurred if they are unable to work and unable to, for example, look after the children. Again, it's just a case of matching your client to a cell within this table. So in this case, I'm going to do the guaranteed age banded, select the providers that you want to compare, click continue, and you will then go through to your final output results. Again, as before, it's going to show you the areas that were looked at and how they were weighted, our underlying benchmarks in each of the areas, and then it will give you an overall result, as well as giving you results in each of the areas that were selected. Again, with that, you've got two options of an output report: the 2-page summary, which is be exactly the same as the critical illness, but obviously showing the income protection results, or the detailed reports. Again, I've got an income protection detailed report here. As you saw before, exactly the same layout. It will show you the overall results, the results for each of the areas analysed, and then it will give you, if you elect to include it in the report, all of the questions we've asked, along with the responses from up to the top 6 providers. So again, very simple and easy. It's just a case of matching your client to one of the cells in that table. If I quickly take you through life protection, which again is the same process, but the table is slightly different. Within this, we're looking at particularly underwriting limits. One of the things Mike said is that there's a lot of advisors there that want to be able to get a contract where there's not going to be any automatic underwriting if there's no medical evidence. So what we've done is based this table on age bands so that we can rate people based on their underwriting limits. So along the top there, it's just a case of matching your client to an age band within that table, and then whether it's a single life or a joint life policy. Again, just match your client to a cell within that table. Again, you'll go through, select who you want to compare, and then you will get your overall results. The one thing I would show you, and this is the same on all of the tools, if you are speaking to a client that has or highlighted a specific need or wants to change something slightly, there's something they particularly looking for from a protection contract, you can slightly go away from the templates that have been created for you. So you can get to the end results screen and click on the refine current selection. That will then take you back a step where it will show you the high-level areas that have been selected and then what's been selected and how they've been weighted within that. If you wanted to change that, you can refine it by clicking on the refine sections and go through and add in something that the client has said they're particularly concerned about, give it a weighting, and then continue on and alter the results slightly. What I would say about that is we would only really recommend you doing that if the client has particularly said that they're concerned about something. So for instance, if you was doing a critical illness policy and they said they had a family history of a certain critical illness, you might want to go and weight that particular critical illness more heavily than any others. With advisors, it's fairly rare that advisors will use that, or a client would specifically say they're looking for something from a critical illness policy, but we do have that feature there if you want it. I've had a question from Yanis, who has asked, what if a client has a pre-existing medical condition? Does it make a difference to the results? That's a good example of what I was just showing you there. So if they do have a pre-existing medical condition, we do have the ability for you to factor that in. So you can go back, refine the sections, and within this there is a pre-existing condition exclusions area. So you could elect to add that in, submit that, that will then go in and change the weightings. Let's just wait for it to think about it. And then we've got a whole list there. I'm not saying this list is absolutely exhaustive, but what we cover here is the main conditions that people usually come with a pre-existing condition in, so you could find it in that list, weight it 100%, and then that would take that into account. So for example, if I had a cancer who's been, if I had a client who had cancer, has been in remission for over 5 years, I could weight that, submit it, generate the report. That will then go off and rerun the results, and I think that has actually changed what the results, yeah. So before Royal London were coming top, followed by LV. Now LV have jumped to the top, followed by Royal London, because they treat clients that have had cancer, been in remission for 5 or more years, better than Royal London do. So hopefully that's answered that question. You can then go off and again print the summary report or print the detailed reports. Some other things I want to show you that may be of use to you is we are actually accredited by both the CII and the PFS to produce structured CPD training, and we have a whole host of content on the site which enables you to go in and complete structured CPD. So within each of these 3 tools, what you will notice is there is a training link below the comparison. If you click on that, that will take you through to a number of different pieces of training that we offer. If you click on any of those, that will take you through to the structured CPD. Each one of these is worth 30 minutes of structured CPD, and I think we've got somewhere in the region of between 7 and 8 hours for protection on the site. To complete it, it's just a case of reading through the main content, then answering a number of questions. Once you've answered those correctly, it will take you through to the next page, and we will email you through your certificate of structured CPD training, which you can then log in whatever way you want. We also provide the ability for you to email that certificate to someone else in your business that might manage the CPD. So that's available there for you if you want. As I said, there's between 7 and 8 hours of structured CPD training on the site for you to use if you wish. So I've kind of gone through that fairly, hopefully not too quickly that it's not been understood. However, what I'm going to do now is just open up everyone's microphone so that everyone can hear you, and just say if anyone's got any questions, could you shout them out or type them into the questions box, and I'll be happy to answer them. So I'll leave that open for a couple of minutes. If there's any questions, let me know.
Hello? Actually, I have no question. I was just using this to instruct the general question come up on
No questions. No? Okay, if there's no questions, I'd like to thank you all for joining the webinar. As I said, we will provide you with your login to the system shortly after the webinar finishes. If you've got any questions, you can come to me directly. My contact details are adam.higgs, which is HIGGS, at F&TRC, F for Foxtrot, T for Tango, R for Romeo, C for Charlie.co.uk. Alternatively, if you speak to Mike, Mike can funnel any questions through to me that may arise. Otherwise, I hope you all have a good day and hope you find the system useful. Thank you all for joining. Thank you very much.
Okay.